Microdose, yeah. Microdose, 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 dose. Microdose, microdose, dose. Microdose, microdose, dose.
What's good, y'all? Kush Hayes here, coming to you local by choice, international by nature edition of the Microdose. You've seen him before, you're going to see him again, but coming all the way from the sunny UK, my friend James Marshall from the Where Nobody Knows Your Name podcast. How you doing today, James?
I'm doing good, Kush. Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm fucking enjoying the summer, having a great time out here. Been working a lot of ball games, which wasn't a thing 2 years ago. So I'm excited about that, especially getting to work with my local San Francisco Giants. Honestly,
Yeah.
dude, it's for me, it's a sensational feeling. Like I went to the media credential booth one day, and that's a thing you have to do every time you show up for work. But they normally give me like just a day pass. Like this pass is only good for today, or it's only good for the next 3 days that you are working. But then I showed up opening day, and they're like, "Here is your season-long credential." I was like, like
Nice.
gasp! We're finally legit. Never thought I would see the day. It's one of the best feelings I've ever had. Like, maybe second or third to getting the Hall of Fame 2 years ago. Speaking of baseball, I was on the Facebook the other day, as I usually am, and saw a post from a common friend of ours. Troy Anthony Grant was like, "I lost my baseball," and he's got a picture, and it's beautiful London Stadium, whose actual name is London Stadium, and you're there with him. And turns out that the Cubs of Chicago and the Cardinals of St. Louis have agreed to meet for a 2-game exhibition match, still counts towards the record, in jolly old England. And you guys happen to be there for it. And I just want to know, like, was this your first baseball game ever? Like, how many times have you been? If not, like, what was your experience? Like, first off, when did you find out this was happening?
We found out it was happening back in February, March time, and we booked the tickets not too long after. Yeah, it was Troy's first baseball game that he'd been to. So he was embracing the whole thing, bought a Cardinals shirt, even though they lost 9-1. But he went there, got the t-shirt nonetheless. It was my third baseball game, because I went to a Red Sox game when I was in Boston in August or September, and I went to a Yankees game in the Bronx back in 2017, I want to say.
Baseball can be a complex game, and they've actually added some rules to like speed it up a little bit. And for the record, it's actually it helps. It's maybe shaved like 15 to 30 minutes off the game, but that's a lot. The game can still go on forever. But like, are you able to follow even on your third attempt? Are you able to follow the rules? Did you know what was going on? Obviously, you cross 4 bags, and that's a goal. But are you following the game at all? Like 3 strikes?
Yeah. At this point, I could follow it quite easily, and when the time difference suits, I watch some games here at home. Yeah, I've had to explain to Troy some of the rules along the way prior to us going to see it. But we had on his gaming channel, we had a playthrough of The Show 21, I think it was. So I was
the video game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was explaining to him the rules while we were playing that, but there's definitely some points where there was a bad pitch from the Cardinals, and I was like, "Oh, that's a ball, that's low, that's it." And people were like, "How can you tell from here?" And I was like, "It was at his ankles." It's definitely low. Yeah.
I remember as a kid playing baseball, just in the backyard and whatnot. Like, yeah, like trying to figure out the batter's box. That was always complicated because like it gets into the whole thing. It's one rectangle and 9 squares within that rectangle. And by the way, the umpire's decision is still final. So like that sucker can still make a bad call, and you're just like, oh, you just ruined the entire game, you bastard.
Yep.
What other rules do you think he's fuzzy on?
I think he was confused by base runners. There weren't any in the game we saw, but I think when we played the show, he's confused by people running between bases when the ball hasn't been thrown. I think
stealing a base.
Base stealers, yeah, stealing bases. Yeah. He was confused by that. I think touch outs. I forgot the exact phrase, but as opposed to out on a base, out touches someone with the ball to get them out. I think he was confused by that as a concept as well, because we have softball around us here in the UK, and it's not. That rule isn't part of it. It's very much, you have to. The rules that we have are similar to baseball in that you have to have a foot on the base while catching the ball to get someone out at base. Yeah. But the touch out isn't a thing that we have there.
The whole tagging a runner with your glove, it goes two different ways. So like if you're on first or third, you can touch the plate with your foot, and that's an out if the guy hasn't reached the bag yet. But second and home, you can't block the bag, but that's where you have to like touch the guy. It gets into a whole thing. Like there was a day you could just literally block the bag, and that sucker could just tackle you. And as long as you hold on to the ball, then maybe it's an out. The rules get squirrely as time goes on. I can tell you, as a lifelong baseball fan, and again, I've been following the game since I was like 8 or 9, and that was 1987. My first game was San Francisco Giants hosting the St. Louis Cardinals. The Giants would win like 4-1 or something. But anyway, even after all these years, one rule I'm still fuzzy on is in the 9th inning. So the starting team is up, and if they're ahead and then they finally get the third strike, the game might end. But also, like if the other team is winning, then there might be another at bat to make it a full 9th inning. But sometimes they're just like, fuck it, let's just go home. We're done here. Like, and it's weird. Like it doesn't make no sense. Sometimes you can be ahead by 25 points, and like, no, we're gonna take our last at bats here. Like we're still here to play. Like really, it's 25-1, guys. Come on. It's always a thing that's daunted me. I can never guess it correctly 2 times in a row. And that's even me waiting in the hallway, waiting for the team to come that I have to help capture for a TV spot. Like, wait, what? Middle of the 9th? No, we should just go home now, guys. Come on, let's just go home. I don't care who won. I just want to go home, guys. Come on.
That is something which we did ask people at the game about, because we didn't think it was going to be a 9-1 like conceited game. They weren't going to go in the 6th inning like, oh yeah, you're ahead. You're thinking about. But in the Baseball World Championship, there were rules that I think it was if you were 15 ahead in the 5th inning and 10 ahead in the 7th, then they could call the game.
Oh, mercy rule. Dude, we so need that. We so need that. Again, I love the game. Playing the game is actually a lot more fun than watching the game, but they introduced a few new rules to help speed things up. There's actually like a counter now. So like a pitcher back in the day could just delay a thing out. Like he's waiting for the guy on first to try and steal second. And he's going to get him out there. But it was just so many delays. Oh no! Now the manager has to come up and talk to the pitcher on the mound. Oh, now the catcher has something to say. Like, it could just go on. 10 minutes can elapse without a pitch even being thrown back in the day. But something has happened within like the last 5 years, definitely the last decade, where now like I think even the players are too skilled for the game itself or for the rules that are in play, because now we actually have games where, like, I want to say the Dodgers got their clocks clean the other day, 25-1. There was a game last season where the Toronto Blue Jays in Boston destroyed the Red Sox like 28-3. Like it was 28-0 for a while, and then something happened where
I remember that game. Yeah.
I don't tend to follow many details outside of San Francisco Giants activities, but like I was at a job site in Sonoma, and like just saw a meme. Someone had that Simpsons meme where Homer as Krusty the Clown is beating up the Hamburglar, and the kid's like, "Stop it! He's dead already." And I was like,
"He's already dead."
What happened with the Red Sox game? Sure enough, like it's still going on. It's only the 7th inning too. It's like, oh my god, like this is a landslide. This is where we need the mercy rule, because at this point, like,
I think if you're 20 ahead in any inning, just go stop.
Statistically, at some point, everybody on the Toronto team scored 3 times. Like, it just
wow.
Okay, nine players on a team.
The one I heard something about that game is Mark Evan Jackson, the comedian actor who's in The Good Place and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, does a
Okay.
few things with Mike Sure. He was at that game, I think, because he's a Massachusetts local, not Boston, but maybe Concord or somewhere near Boston. So he was at the game, and at the game, someone proposed, right? And it was in a latter stage inning, and the song they played was "We Fell in Love in a Hopeless Place."
I know that song very well. I know the song very well. The San Francisco Giants, longtime rivals, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and this rivalry goes all the way back when both the teams were in New York, the Dodgers in Brooklyn,
Mm,
the Giants of New York, and like blood has literally been spilled in this feud. Like people have gone to the hospital. There's a dude named Brian Stowe who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and also talking the wrong shit to the wrong people, and like that dude's a vegetable now. Like it's amazing that he's
mhm.
fully functional. It's not a thing I'm trying to make light of, but like that's how serious I'm trying to like impose that like this feud is serious, and it's stupid. It's a game. No one
Yeah.
should be crippled or hospitalized over a baseball game. However, because of stuff like that and the centuries of rivalry, I woke up the other day to a headline that went, San Francisco Giants upset the Los Angeles Dodgers to the worst loss in career history. It was 15-1. I was like, this is the greatest day ever. Like, I was light on my feet. It was like a brand new Fast and Furious trailer came out. I was like, nothing can ruin my day today. I'm getting tingles just thinking about it right now, James. What was the
It's
crowd like? Was it all locals from the UK, from London? Where we're like, I know folks in San Francisco who are diehard soccer football fans that'll literally go wherever the World Cup is. Like even if their team isn't
yeah,
in it, like they
like
are serious. They're not
guitar.
fair weathered fans. So
Mm.
were there any Americans in the crowd? Was any expats? Like what could you gauge from where you were, and where were you in the stadium? On the third base line, outfield?
We were on the third baseline, yeah, about
Okay.
halfway up the bleachers there, which is not bad.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's a football stadium most of the year. What
Mhm.
they've done is they basically they put more seating in, which meant that the actual field was smaller than baseball fields in stadiums in the States. Didn't make a
Okay.
difference. Like no one scored a home. They did score home runs, but it didn't go flying up into the bleachers like you'd expect for a smaller stadium.
Hmm.
It's interesting you ask about the crowds because one, in the UK there is hooliganism with
Oh God.
UK's sport of football,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to what you said about baseball rivalry, it still surprises me, and surprised me even more so with it being London Stadium, that they didn't segregate crowds by which team they were supporting. They just went, yeah,
Okay.
book a seat anywhere. We don't really care. And I was like, huh. Because you may have heard about this in football stadiums, you're not allowed to drink in your seat while the game is in play.
Okay.
So you have to go in halftime, fine, or while it's in play, you can go and drink somewhere else. Charlie Day was almost arrested for it when he went to watch Wrexham because of Rob McElhenney being the owner. And he didn't know
Right.
because, baseball, you sit and you drink beer while you're watching the game for 3 hours. But yeah, I think for Troy particularly, it's why he, embraced that kind of atmosphere because although people were supporting different teams, those of us who were quite impartial to whoever won, we were just
Mhm.
there enjoying the atmosphere, having a nice time. And
Mhm.
case in point, this family next to us, this middle-aged guy and his son was a teenager. They were supporting the Cubs. This family in front of us were Cardinals, and there wasn't any like beef between them. They just
Mhm.
acknowledged each other. Went well, all right then, just got on watching the game, and that was a pleasant surprise. To like, I knew that there wasn't segregated crowds because I'd been to games in the States, but it was a
Mhm.
nice surprise watching a game in the UK and it being quite cordial in comparison.
Nice.
Because yeah, you hear some stories. I lived in Glasgow, for example, for 4 years, And Glasgow's not the friendliest city to begin with. But when there's a football game on, they they go, right, everyone be on extra high alert. We have a bonfire night, or what's it called, 5th of November here, where we light an effigy of a terrorist. And I don't claim to know why, but basically it's a big old fireworks night. It's a guy who tried to blow up Parliament hundreds of years ago, and because he didn't succeed,
Guy Fawkes?
That guy. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we do a thing about this, and in Glasgow, it was delayed by 2 days because all the police were acting as security for a football game.
See, that's amazing that the city can show that much restraint. So yeah, I've heard some terrible stories about football hooligans. I want to say the story I heard comes out of Ireland, but I mean, I'm sure maybe it comes out of any other country too. Like, I had a friend who went to Spain for the summer, and he went to a football game, and the seats he went to were enclosed by a goddamn fence. Like, he was in a cage watching this thing, and I was like, dude, that doesn't sound safe. He was like, I mean, some bottles are getting thrown, bro. So I was happy to be in the cage. It's like, what? But anyway, going back to, I heard some shit of, like, again, the arenas are segregated off, and I've heard in Ireland, and maybe again other countries too, if you find yourself on the wrong side of the arena, there are the hooligans that'll take a box cutter, much like this one, and slash your buttocks. Okay. And give you a hard time, and it hurts to sit down, as you can imagine. It's not going to do any permanent damage, but it's going to make your next couple weeks inconvenient. And then the football hooligans figured out, like, oh, these guys are just going to the doctors and getting stitched up. Let's glue 2 of these sons of bitches together and take a big chunk out of everybody. And that made things worse. And I'm just like, what? It really doesn't need to be all this. I can't imagine they didn't do this out there at London Stadium, but like here in San Francisco and across the bay in Oakland, there's like a 5 to 10 minute warning about, like, don't do this, don't do that. Remember, it's just a game. There are children around you, so don't say any language. If you get a little too rowdy, someone's going to talk to you. Like, it just goes on and on and on. And the long story short is, like, we are not tolerating this shit in 2023 anymore. We will happily take your money and kick you out post haste. Can you confirm any terrible stories like that where, like, people are literally just being assaulted that way? Like, again, going back to the Giants and the Dodgers, I had a roommate who went down to Dodger Stadium to watch a Giants game for his birthday, and they had to leave in the 4th inning because fans were literally throwing, like, nachos and popcorn at him. This was circa, like, 2004, I want to say.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't have any first-hand experience of football bans because I don't tend to go to watch football much. But when it's coming up to the finals of the season, particularly in the larger cities with I was going to say better teams. Yeah, I think I could say that. The teams which are ranked higher in the standings, Manchester, for example, because you've got both Manchester City and Manchester United, that can get troublesome around the final time. Even where I live, there was the FA Cup final, which I don't know enough to claim how it actually affects overall results within the country. But the city which I live in have, been close to winning the FA Cup final for years and years, and they played their rival in the last final to get it and lost on penalty shootouts, right, of soccer. And 10 minutes after the game ended, I heard an ambulance, and I went, yeah, that'll me do that.
You were saying during a football game over there's no drinking during the game in your seats, at least. I'm sorry if I missed it already. Were you able to drink during the baseball game?
Oh yeah, we got very drunk during the baseball game, and you said something about was there an announcement to say everyone be on your best behavior? If there was violence, you would have got arrested. If there was, for lack of a better term, hate speech, any speech which could have incited violence, you probably would have got thrown out of the stadium at least.
Mhm.
But in terms of swearing, Troy and I were swearing away. We were lucky we didn't have the dads who were sitting around us going up to the Chelsea and just putting their hands around them. Just don't listen to these two.
Mhm.
But basically, Troy went to get some more beers, and he was off buying a shirt. And it was middle of the seventh, so they were at this point. The guy in front, whose dad was from St. Louis, who was like, "Oh yeah, some guy's gonna sing, come out and sing, take me out to the ball game." And I went, "Oh, that's nice." And then they went, "It's to sing, take me out to the ball game. It's American comedian and actor Nick Offerman." And I loudly went, "Fuck!" And this kid behind me went, and then Troy came back, and I was like, "It's Nick Offerman," and he went, "What?"
Right.
Yeah, we're both. I assume because we're on this podcast, but yeah, we're both big fans of his work, both in Parks and Rec and his dramatic roles. So yeah, we were. I was very surprised by that. Yeah.
I was never a fan of Parks and Rec, the TV show. However, I recognize that the Nick Offerman character is the best character in that
Oh yeah.
series. And by the way, the man himself, Nick Offerman, is a goddamn man. Like he tells some funny jokes. He's an actor. Now play out of the type roles like he did in The Last of Us on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
But then like this guy's like a carpenter and makes canoes and shit like that. Like has like a 7-year waiting list. He's like, I'm not rushing these pieces, guys. I'm just like, you want me to make something pretty for you? It's gonna take a while, but I'll do it. He's someone everyone should aspire to be.
Right. Yeah.
Bill Murray participated in that too, or
he didn't sing. He was in the crowd. They just did a quick cutaway where I remember thinking, "That's a drunk old man," and then it came up and went Bill Murray, and I went, "What?"
Was Bill Murray made some headlines recently where he's dating. I want to say her name is Khalees. I also may be thinking of the chick from Game of Thrones, but the chick who did My Milkshake Brings All the Boys. He's apparently dating that chick right now. Could you tell if she was there or not?
No, it was a tight shot, so you only saw his seat. But yeah, it was. I hadn't heard that news. That is surprising.
I keep thinking like it's an article from The Onion or some other parody newspaper, but like a couple of like legit trades picked it up and I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. But it's not weirder than the guy who used to be married to Liza Minnelli was dating 90s hip hop artist Da Brat. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but it was just like that's still the weirdest pairing. Anyways, going back to Bill Murray. So should you ever bump into Bill Murray, he'll have like a full-blown conversation with you as long as you don't talk about his filmography or probably film in general. Like if you know about the Chicago Cubs, he'll talk your ass off all goddamn night. So that's a little Murraynator tip there for you. Going back to beer, one, did they stop selling beer in the 7th inning? Because that's a thing out here. And two, how much was beer? Because I'm standing by to be shocked.
The beer at the stadium was £7, £7.50, something like that. More than 7, less than 8, which for London was okay. We were expecting it to be more than where we live.
Okay.
Because we live near Birmingham, and £7 for a pint is expensive. But we also had a couple of pints at the train station before going to the stadium, and they were the same price. So we went, all right then. We'll accept it. Yeah.
So the train station has a bar, or at least has like one of those coffee vendors. Like, I got some beer here too, guys. Like,
yeah. It's a tap room type thing. So we started on a beer from San Diego because we're going to see an American sport. We'll have an American IPA. Feels right,
Yes. So that's fascinating. So £7.50. I'm gonna just estimate that's roughly $10. $10. Thank you. Okay, that's still surprisingly cheap, and maybe I'm just thinking about San Francisco prices. I think the beer prices are different ballpark to ballpark, city to city, state to state. So, but if you were in San Francisco and wanted to get a beer, one, they're going to give you a 20-ounce beer, which is great, but that's going to run you maybe $15, $15, and just like Fuck. But okay. But yes, that's why you have a couple drinks at the bar across the street or in the parking lot or on the train. Like,
This was related to baseball plans, but something I did by myself because I was supposed to meet Troy for, I'll call it brunch, just your English breakfast thing with the bacon and the sausages and the eggs and whatnot. But he was busy, so between at 11:30 a.m., I drank 2 pints of cider with this English
powerful.
breakfast. So I was drinking quite steadily for 9 hours, and I was okay with that.
Good for you, dude. Good for you. Powerful. Powerful's tolerance.
We showed up at the accommodation because we stayed the night because Troy and his girlfriend went off to Europe. They were touring around northwestern Europe for a week. But when we showed up at the accommodation later that night, she went, "I could smell the beer on you both," and we went, "Yeah, yeah."
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You know. So one question I didn't get answered: did they cut off beer sales in the 7th inning?
Oh, I don't think so. Actually, no. I think
Scandalous.
I think because I don't remember whether we went to get one after the 7th inning because basically through some confusion, Troy was gone for a while he was getting his shirt turned out, and there was a queue. So I was like, I'm gonna get some food. So I walked off, bought some food, bought beer for me and Troy came back with his shirt and beers for each of us as well. So as a result, we had 2 beers each stacked up during the 7th inning. So we didn't need to go and get a beer after the 7th,
So that's amazing. They also sold him 4 beers. So dig this. Like, yeah, there's a limit to how many beers you can also buy, regardless of what inning it is. Some stands won't let you buy more than 2. Some won't let you buy more than 3. And if you do it right, and they don't pop the top. Like, I went to a wrestling event one time where they were still doing that shit as well. So I went to the one booth and I got 2 beers and I claimed one and I drank enough out of it that I could put it in my side pocket here. And then I carried that and I walked to another stand because there was 3 of us, but I was the only one getting beer. And I was like, "One more beer, sir." And then I walked over and finally got back to my seats, and my friends were like, "Well, where's your beer?" I was like, "Right here, player." Like, you have to figure out sneaky things about that. And one of the reasons why they do that is, 1, they don't want a bunch of drunk assholes in the venue, but 2, drinking and driving is still very much a thing out here. So that's why they cut you off at the 7th inning here. I'm guessing there's a lot of people just taking the train to London Stadium. Like, I'm sure there's a parking lot, but I can't imagine many people or the majority of folks are taking advantage of that.
Exactly. Yeah, we took the train down, and the subway was packed. Getting out of it. So yeah, there was anyone who drove into London would have been foolish to do so at any time, really. I think it was both a novelty type thing and indicative of British drinking culture and the fact that they didn't have a beer limit where you could buy hollow plastic baseball bats, the same size as a baseball bat but made out of plastic, with the top with the, I don't know what you call it, the bunt end, not the handle, the other end, with no cap, and they could fill that up with beer, so you could have a baseball bat full of beer. And it's like, yeah. Just...
All right. It's amazing that they're giving you guys bats of any kind of matter. Okay, we used to have a souvenir bat night, and it's a little bat. It's roughly about 12 to 15 inches long, and it's the size of a billy club. All right, and they stopped doing that when assholes got drunk, their team lost, and then they just started assaulting the shit out of each other in the stands. They're like, "We can't do this anymore," and it's never been a thing for the last 20 years. So it's amazing that in the UK, where people are shivving each other in the stands, that they're like, "Yeah, here, take this thing. Like, it's heavier when it's filled with beer. Enjoy." Parking again. I know you took the train in. Were you able to check out like how much parking was out there? Because here's what's up. Like, if you park at the official lot, like at Oracle Park here where the Giants play, parking might run you $20 to $25. And then if the Giants are doing really good and have made it to the postseason, that's October, the price like doubles. It's very obnoxious. It's quite insulting to the fan base. But then there are the exterior lots that have nothing to do with the Giants or the ballpark. They're just we just happen to be a parking lot in the neighborhood. These cunts are charging up to like $150 for the day. Like if the Giants aren't playing, $15, which is still abnormal for San Francisco. But they're like, yeah, there's a special event going on. Could be Taylor Swift, could be Run DMC, could be the San Francisco Giants in the playoffs. $150. Take it or leave it. Just it should be criminal. Were you able to gauge any prices over there for this special exhibition?
We weren't able to see the car park. Didn't know where the closest car park was, but because it does act as a football stadium throughout most of the year, and it's one of the higher rated teams, which is West Ham, then I'd imagine that because they're higher rated, they're likely to get to finals more often, and therefore, one, it's in London, which means it's expensive anyway, but two, they could probably charge a lot for parking because there'll be people going year round to see a West Ham game.
And, all right, so the free market very much exists out there.
Yeah. And as you point out, most people in London, I assume a similar thing in New York, would take public transport to get there. So they'd want to make their money back if they did have a car park, you know.
Yeah. I work a lot of games this year, and it's very interesting situation, much different than from what I do with the Golden State Warriors. So like when I work a Warriors game, if I'm lucky, there's a set day the day before, meaning I get to come in, it's maybe 6 to 10 hours, we put everything in place, and then the next day we come in maybe 6 hours before the game starts, make sure nothing's been adjusted, make sure all the connections are still tight, and then we have our game. But then we have to tear everything down, put it back, put all the toys back in the box and pack the truck. And those can still be 12 to 15 hour days. In those situations, once I'm off the clock, the entire crowd is left. So I can catch an Uber anywhere. If I'm lucky, the train is still running and I feel like wasting 2 hours, I can take the train. However, with the Giants, it's, for instance, yesterday, they're playing whatever team they're playing. They just started game 1 of a 3-game series. So yesterday, a bunch of teams came in. They loaded everything in, installed everything. Today, at the end of the night, they didn't unplug anything. Maybe a couple handheld cameras came back for security reasons, so no one wanders off with them because crime is still very much a thing in these high security areas. But then, like tonight, it'll be the same. People come in like 3 hours early. They'll make sure everything's still in place. They'll reset whatever they have to reset. They'll do the game. And then because there's another game tomorrow with the same team, nothing will really happen. So that means once the game is over, maybe there's a post-game show that some of us have to do, and then we get off, and then there's still 1,000 fucking people trying to take the train. So getting home after work is a pain in the ass. Like catching Uber, impossible. Fortunately, I just go across the street to the pub and get a pint or two. Where I'm going with this is like just public transit out here is still a nightmare, and as much as the local municipal railway would like to be of service, like they just don't have enough trains to support everybody. So like I still end up having to wait like an hour or two before people leave, and then like, all right, now I can catch my goddamn Uber, or now I can take the train home. Like also I don't like being surrounded by people, so like that's I could just squeeze into the sardine can, but who wants to do that? Not me, at least. Talk about the game itself. Did you have a good time?
Did have a good time. Yeah. Again, because I was fairly impartial, it was there for the atmosphere, there for the entertainment of the sport itself, rather than having emotional stake in whatever the result was, which was a lot more freeing than some of the diehard fans of either particular team. So we got to enjoy that atmosphere, camaraderie that came about through the team. When they did Sweet Caroline, Troy has a video of some of us singing with the crowd and the various dads we found. Yeah, arms in arms singing along to Sweet Caroline. Yeah, the poor children baffled by 7 pint deep James. Yeah.
Were any highlights of the game that stood out? Like so and so got up and hit a 2-run home run, or anything fun like that?
Forgot which batter it was, but he split the bat in one of the times when he hit the ball. Bat split in two, splintered off.
Oh wow,
That
yeah,
was
that's a
quite,
big thing the last couple of years too. Again, I think the players are getting too powerful for the game. Lots of broken bats these days. There was a time when that would happen in the '80s, and they'd be like, "X-ray the bat. He's corking the bat." Like, you want to make the bat lighter, so if you wanted to cheat back in the day, you would literally drill a hole into the bat, stuff it full of cork, wine cork, obviously, and then put
yeah,
a cap on it, and then you could crack the shit out of it, but also your bat might just explode. So nowadays,
yeah,
bats are not being corked, but they're just shattering, like they're splintering every day. It's quite a phenomenon.
yeah. I've seen a couple of games on TV where it happened. But yeah, that was quite early in the game, which probably shows how aggressive the players are getting. Yeah, that was second or third inning when that happened. So
Wow.
very
Okay.
early, very early in the
That's a
game that was. Mm.
powerful hitter then. Powerful hitter. A lot of my knowledge for football, global football, is from the Ted Lasso series. I'm not ashamed to admit that, but I know it rolls a lot of eyes. So through that series, I've learned that no two pitches, that's field for the rest of y'all, no two pitches are the same size. And that's the same in baseball. So, like in San Francisco, the furthest the outfield gets is 415 feet. Do you know what the dimensions were for the field in London Stadium?
Oh, that is a good question. I much less than 415 feet.
Wow. Okay.
I'm saying so. I've not seen the Giants Stadium, obviously. But
Mhm.
having seen, if I were comparing it to Fenway, which I went to fairly recently, I'd say it was a third of the size of Fenway.
Hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Also, I'm not familiar with Fenway, but like just the idea that there's only a third of the stadium being used for this event, that's crazy to me. Um, what are the dimensions of London Stadium when it's just a football pitch?
Um, I'm gonna have to look at that up because I
Okay.
think football pitches are standardized. There we go. Football
Oh,
pitch.
there's a
Uh,
scene in the Ted Lasso show where Ted's trying to build the boys up. It's like, this is the same field that you watched Wimbledon on, and blah, blah, blah. And like, no, hey, man, this is not the same Wimbledon you're talking about. And in fact, that pitch was twice as big as the one we're on right now. Um, but yeah, like in baseball in the States, they all vary within like a few feet of each other. I want to say the
mm,
shortest one was Wrigley Field in Chicago, home of the
mm,
Cubs. And I think the largest one is Denver, Colorado for the Rockies. And that's because Denver is a full mile above sea level. So for whatever reason,
right.
like the balls when they hit, the air takes them differently. Like it's just an entirely different environment altogether. So it's hard to explain. And I'm being a
The
baseball geek here, so this is why we're asking just like rudimentary questions. Like,
Yeah, I've had a look up the size of football pitches. It's 105 by 68 meters
and that's all
for
standardized
football
now.
pitch. I think it's standardized because often in a lot of things in the UK, when they try to describe how big something is, they say it's the size of two football fields, and you go, okay, you just
That's hilarious. There's a meme going around on Facebook where it's like such and so is the size of three humpback whales, and then the caption will be like, Americans will use anything but the metric system. And then
yep.
someone comes out like, you come within three humpback whales and say that shit to our face. Like, so, dude, I feel like I've talked your ear off here. I've had a blast talking about baseball here. Like, is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything else you wanted to highlight, or like this stood out above any other event I've been to? Um, Yeah.
About the London Stadium, I think for me it was seeing a game in the UK, because I'd gone to see games at the States, and because the London series is different teams, but an annual thing, and where they take rivalries. So a few years back it was Yankees Red Sox, and this is what one of the guys near us was saying. I'm definitely going to go back to it because it's there is an atmosphere which is similar to football, but in some ways more pleasant, because of the lack of hooliganism, because of the impartiality we have to either team, because it lacks the football chanting, right? And that could be chanting a person's name, but often, and this happens a few times, what British football fans do, and I wouldn't even say this is hooliganism, this is just a British sense of humor, is that they'll sing insults to one of the players, but it would be to the tune of well-known pop songs or things, and I can't name any off the top of my head, but because it's such a British thing, it didn't happen, and I couldn't imagine, them yelling at one of the Cardinals or Cubs players insults, because it just isn't the thing that has happened in the games I've gone to see in the States. And I think if Troy and I did start doing that, again, we don't know who the players are. We would just be insulting them for no reason. But I think the people around us would be like, well, why are these people so abusive to this guy? Yeah. So as a result, it was a nicer experience than a lot of football games. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. James, let's plug your podcast.
Yeah. Where Nobody Knows Your Name is now nearing the end of the 9th season.
And where can we find Where Nobody Knows Your Name?
It's on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, all the major podcast servers. We've also got social media channels at Facebook and Instagram, where you'll see our visual content that we post, as well as our Patreon page, which has different tiers for different things, where you can get newsletters, which coming up as we enter the end of the year, there will be more and more we'll have to say about the Frasier reboot, including the exclusive scoops. We haven't got many, but we're, including any exclusive scoops we do catch, will be published in our newsletter there on our Patreon.
That's what's up. You just said you guys are getting ready to close out season 9, so we'll have to bring you back, talk about what we loved of season 9 and what we're looking forward to in season 10. This is one of our annual episodes. It's some of my favorite podcasts that we do together, James, honestly. I do some stuff around here. You can find me and friend of the family, Mike Fish, also a resident of the UK, now residing all the way in New Jersey. It is the Waffle Box, the original Waffle Box. You accept no substitutes. It is the People's Podcast because it is the best part of Wednesdays, and you accept no substitutions. Coming all the way from the home of Super Bowl 60, it is the Waffle Box with me and Mike Fish. I do some movie reviews. There's some middle of the show quizzes. We do a little bit of this and that. We talk about everything and nothing all at the same time. 104 episodes just came in, and 2 days ago, you can hear my review for Chris Hemsworth in Netflix's Extraction 2. It's not bad. It's not bad. Not great. Not memorable. Not bad. Looking forward to X3. So, for James Marshall, I've been Kush Hayes. You've been you.
Microdose, 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 yeah, microdose.
from the Bosnet family.
Oh yeah, yeah. We got very drunk during the baseball game, and